really cognizant of, we want to always be really cognizant of our time with our captain in case he needs to jump off for any emergencies or anything. And just so everyone knows, we are recording this so others can see it if they would like. So we'll start with Captain Spears and any Q&A you have about public safety for the area. And then we'll go into our speakers. We have a pretty long list of speakers this evening, and that's specifically so that we could address all of the issues that came up in last month's meeting. I want to thank everyone for being involved and asking great questions. And we've also had some things have changed since the last and clarified since the last month. So we will be able to provide additional details on these things. And then so we'll keep questions until after everybody has kind of gone through. And there have been some members of the group who were able to go to the Rue Ferrari site this week and tour it. And Home First is the service provider at the Rue Ferrari site. So it's a little bit different setup, but it's the same services that would be at the Arena Hotel. And so some of the group members might want to share, and we have some space for that, as well as general Q&A. So we're going to try to move things along. And I think, Captain Spears, do you have an update for us on the public safety in the area?
I'm actually looking for Captain Spears, unless he is the person who called in with the 408 telephone number. Captain Spears, if that is you.
He's here, 3413.
Oh, just got here.
Can you hear me, Captain Spears? All right, you're up. Do you have an update for us?
So from our last meeting, and hello, good evening, everyone. I literally took one computer and jumped off one Zoom to the next. So one of the updates that I'm working on, and I shared it with Edward yesterday, was trying to coordinate with the walking beats. I know that's something that everyone is definitely have an interest in. I am still in negotiations of speaking with the stakeholders from the Whole Foods to see if we can kind of take up a chunk of space with utilizing those officers, which then will allow us to expand our bike patrol over there. That's my biggest component on here. As it gets closer, again, we will launch once we have a date set for the Arena Hotel. I'd like to start before then. I can't give you a date as of right now, and here's the reason why. We're going through some staffing issues. Nothing that we can't get through, but as of right now, Chief Mata is having us focus on making sure that the staffing levels are not on the secondary, are not the focal point for secondary employment, but for the need for our community so we can respond. So as this continues, we're putting officers through bicycle schools so that they can be a part of this. On the Alameda, just based off of the space and the distance, I will create a bicycle overtime job so the officers are able to get to and from a lot faster and swifter. So that's just a little update from me. And I hope you heard me, because I see everybody is frozen on my screen.
We heard you, or at least I heard. I hope everyone did. Yeah, we're getting some thumbs up. Does anyone have any questions for Captain Spears?
Nope.
All right. Looks like everyone asked all their questions in our office hour yesterday, Captain Spears. Great. So thank you. It's really helpful for us to allow the captain to go first. And then Nicholas, I'm sorry, I don't have the agenda. I think Rachel is first on
Yes, I will do a share
regular
screen.
presenter list. Thank you.
Rachel, 1 second, you could take it away.
This is Rachel Vanderveen from Housing, the Housing Department for the city. And I want to make sure everyone else has their, I'm going to mute too, but everyone else have your devices muted when Rachel is speaking. We've been getting a little bit of background noise. Go ahead, Rachel.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. I wanted to take a minute to introduce myself. Thank you to Councilmember Deb Davis for the introductions and for Nicholas for all your work setting this up. So I am the Deputy Director of the Housing Department, and one of my responsibilities is to implement our production program, where we are looking to increase the supply of affordable housing. We're also looking at innovative ways to house our homeless population by creating supportive housing in lots of different shapes and sizes. And one of the things that we did this past year, or actually 2 years now, in response to the state's challenge, if you will, is to think creatively about different ways to utilize the state's Home Key grant application. And so what this is grant money to acquire hotels which can provide immediate shelter for our homeless population. And so we've been really thinking creatively about how to do that in San Jose, and the acquisition of the Arena Hotel is an example of our efforts to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with an overview of the project from our perspective, and then also some of the timelines that you can expect over the next coming months and years. So with that, I'll just jump into the presentation. So here's just a quick shot of the Arena Hotel. We have actually received a Home Key Award for this hotel, which means we have grant funding that's been allocated by the state. We have also gone to our city council and allocated money, local money, city money to help fund this acquisition. And we're excited to have really great partners who are all here tonight, actually. So that's exciting to work on this project with us. So the developer, so let me just try and explain this. So the city of San Jose will purchase the hotel. So the city of San Jose will own the property that will be purchased through this process. And then we will ground lease it to urban housing communities. And what a ground lease means is, like, urban housing communities is really going to have full responsibility for overseeing the operations and whatever is happening at the site. So the city will ultimately own, like, the dirt, but the development itself will be managed by urban housing communities. And they have entered into a contract with Home First to provide services at the site. So we're going to kind of go through, there's lots of partners on this deal. And so tonight is actually pretty special because you're going to be able to hear from many of them. So this is it's an 89 unit hotel. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the location, right on the Alameda. And the reason that we are interested in this opportunity is both for short and long-term opportunities for us to house people in different ways. So in the short term, we will have it serve as a place for individuals and couples to live in interim housing. And then long-term, we're looking to create permanent housing at this site. So next slide, please. For the short-term plan, as I just mentioned, this is our timeline right now, is that we plan to start construction in November, and just very shortly. Construction should be wrapped up by spring, March is kind of what we're targeting. And then between the time of March and July would be when we'll be taking in people to move into the property. And by July, we would expect it to be fully occupied. And this will be, again, for our interim non-congregate shelter use of the hotel. Next slide, please. Now, long-term, we really see the site in an area where we see development happening in San Jose. And we think that this is a great place for us to also be thinking about how could we create permanent housing in this area. So the planning process itself would be somewhere around 5 years to kind of figure out what that all looks like. Construction is generally 18 months to 2 years. That's very typical for a construction time period to build a new building. And then lease up would be around a year from there. So long term, to move into permanent housing, we're really looking at a 7-8 year process or something, essentially that kind of long term in order to complete that whole process. I wanted to add that recently we were approached by VTA to basically, they would like to run an easement for a tunnel for the BART train to run underneath this property. And that's something that we need to evaluate and understand. And so that is something that would go into this planning bucket of, as you see the long time frame there. That is like one of the things that we're going to need to figure out and determine how that would eventually impact the development on this site. So we'll continue to explore that. At this point, I would just say we've been approached by VTA and we don't have a plan yet on what it means, but it is something that we understand we need to dig into in order to move into this permanent housing phase. Next slide, please. I would also like to just go over the funding for the Arena Hotel. And like I said, all of this funding has actually been in place, is awarded, and is ready to go to make this project happen. So the state has awarded $25 million in home key funds. The city has allocated $20 million, and this is I'm sorry, I'll just keep going and then I can take questions in a minute. And this brings us to a total of $46 million for the project. And the different things that this money covers includes acquisition of the hotel itself, rehabilitation of the existing building, relocation costs to the individuals that are currently living at the hotel. And we're going to get into more details about that later in the presentation. And then also operating costs for 7 years. And a big piece of, well, actually a smaller portion of the home key funding, but a big portion of the city funding is actually dedicated to that. So what that means is for the interim housing, we will be providing annual support to provide services and property management and all of that at the site. And so what we did is we estimated that we're going to be covering that cost for a period of 7 years and have included that. So all the money is in place and there's no question about how that will be funded as we move forward. And that concludes my portion of the presentation.
Thanks, Rachel. Mr. John Bigley from Urban Housing Communities, take it away. You're muted.
There we go. We can
There
hear me now. Good evening. Thanks for taking the time to discuss this important opportunity. As Rachel talked about, it's a collaborative effort for sure between ourselves, the city, Home First, which would be the service provider, and Hyder Property Management, which would be obviously doing property management. So what you see in front of you on that first tab is some projects that we've done in Morgan Hill. The one on the left side is a senior affordable housing development that I think we did about 10, 11 years ago. The one in the middle was a rehab that the city was having some issues with, that asked us to step in and correct and create an affordable housing development, workforce housing development on that site. And the one on the right is again also in Morgan Hill, Crossings at Monterey, and that is a 39 unit workforce housing development / permanent supportive housing development as well. So 20 of those units are permanent supportive housing, which are individuals that were homeless, and we're trying to provide homes for them, much like we're doing here, and providing programs through. That one is through the Office of Supportive Housing through the county. They're providing on-site case management and social services to those residents to help them, acclimate back into the community and jobs and training. If you go to the next slide, that just gives you a little bit of a rundown of who we are. This is 100% our business, which is various types of affordable housing, anywhere from homeless housing to workforce housing. We've used all different funding sources to obtain that through HCD, which is Housing Community Development, through California Tax Credit Allocation Committee, through city fundings, county fundings. We've kind of done it all. We currently have, in addition to those ones in Morgan Hill, specifically that speaks to what we're doing here, of the 2,000 units that we currently have under operation and under development. We do also have 60 units up in Windsor, California, which is homeless veterans. And that's again through another HCD program. And then we also have 60 units out in Cathedral City in Southern California, which is another 60 units of homeless veteran housing. And in both those situations, we work with local service providers that are providing case management and social services to help those residents along, which is, again, very similar to what we're doing in this situation, that being working with Home First, a local, very reputable, solid case, that will provide case management resources, social services resources to that community. So that slide there just kind of talks about who we are. And the next slide just talks about our commitment. We were founded in 2003. We've been in the business before that, but that's when we actually started this particular company, family owned, myself and two of my brothers. Anytime we come in and develop a property, we actually put it more into it in terms of upgrading the facility as much as we can, because, our thought is, if you provide a very good product for working families and individuals, it puts them in a better place, and they'll want to then engage with the rest of the community, engage in the services that we'll be providing. So we do really strive to provide a good product, because we think that's an important part of the puzzle here. In this particular case, we're going to do rehab. The hotel is not in really bad shape. It does need a facelift for sure, and it does need some cosmetic inside, but it's not horrible. And again, as Rachel touched on, this is a two-phase project. So the first phase is providing the housing for the homeless, providing the services and the case management they need to get to that next level. And while that's all happening, and we're going to be the conduit between Home First, HIDA Property Management, and the city to make sure that this is running properly. And then at the same time, we're going to be working in conjunction with the city for the next phase, which will be the permanent workforce housing that we think is vital to the community. And that will be the next phase. And, again, we'll be working with, doing a density study, working with the city to make sure that what we're providing is what is needed within the community. And so that's the next phase. So that kind of concludes my part, but I'm definitely going to be sticking around to answer any questions. And thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Next up, we got Home First. Renee, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, my name is Renee Ramirez. I'm Chief Operating Officer with Home First. Joining me is also B. Ramos. She's our VP of Emergency Services with Home First, and she'll actually be overseeing this project among others. And she's also currently the person that oversees our EIH sites, which I understand some of y'all visited. You get the next slide, please. Here are the support services that we're offering at the Arena Hotel, and we'll get into a little bit deeper in each of these here in a minute. We'll be offering case management to everyone on site, individualized housing plans, and ensuring that everyone is receiving the resources and connections to other services as they need to reach their goals in obtaining permanent housing. We'll offer drop-in services, and we call it drop-in services, but it's solely for the folks that are staying on site. And what we mean by drop-in services is whenever folks are in need of kind of one-time support, they need support with an application, an additional resource, they need just information, our on-site staff will support them through that. We'll also be offering behavioral health services. We'll have a clinician that is assigned to this project and will spend time on site. That will also include crisis intervention as these things come up. If they come up, we'll have a clinical professional be able to come in and support. We'll also engage in community engagements, learning opportunities, workshops, just kind of preparation for folks to kind of get back into the workforce and just take on different learning opportunities that'll help them further their housing plans here. And then the site amenities will include meals provided daily. There'll be laundry on site, Wi-Fi, computer lab, as many resources as we can have on site there to help folks be successful. Next slide. So this is what the team looks like along with the responsibilities. We have a program manager that is assigned, a full-time program manager that is assigned to this project. They are responsible for the guidance and direction of the team overall. They supervise the individuals that are assigned here, the case managers, resident advocates. They'll also serve as a community point of contact. So I know we have lots of local business owners that are participating today, and if ever you all need some support or even want to provide some volunteer opportunities, this will be the person to connect with. They will also work on developing partnerships and bringing, again, those resources on site. We'll have two case managers to this project, if I recall correctly. They are responsible to develop a housing plan with each of the participants. And this housing plan will kind of outline all of the requirements that the individual will have to get to that permanent housing opportunity. And they'll kind of guide them through the process and obtaining the resources, meeting their goals, meeting their objectives to become housed. They will also be responsible for carrying out what we call housing problem solving. This is a strategy, this is a national strategy that we take in the homelessness sector, where we look to make those connections that they previously lost. Maybe it's reconnecting with family and friends and trying to get folks housed in that way. We'll also work at increasing income, whether it's through public benefits, hopefully more through employment opportunities. I did see there was a question around that in the previous meeting. So our team will work with each individual to try to increase income, provide workshops and opportunities for things like resume building and employment search, that type of activity. And then, of course, housing navigation, when the folks are ready to start to do that housing search, connecting with landlords, getting them prepared for housing visits and that type of activity, our case managers will support there. The resident advocates are kind of the key of these projects. These are the folks that are kind of keeping safety. They are kind of keeping things organized at each site and making sure that all of the needs of the participants are taken care of. And they do everything from monitoring the grounds and doing some patrols around not just the property, but around the neighborhood there. They're also the folks that will often respond when we have, a community member reaching out and saying, hey, one of your participants is hanging out in front of our store or a restaurant or whatever it might be. And these resident advocates are usually the folks that go out and try to make that connection and resolve those issues. They also do a lot of de-escalation, although we hope not to see too much of that, being that this is a non-congregate site. And they'll also do things like coordinating workshops. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we have a clinician that will be assigned here. They will do assessments. They will create treatment plans. They will offer that crisis response as necessary and offer things like individual and group therapy. B, anything to add here? No?
Nope, I think you covered it all.
Next slide, please. Here are some strategies, if you will, around community integration, what we do to kind of keep safety in our sites, offer ways for the community to remain engaged, and how we address some things like neighborhood blight, which is always a concern with these types of projects. Around safety and participant standards, all of our staff they're kind of specialized workers in supporting the unhoused. They go through very thorough training. They go through a certification around with something called crisis prevention. They go through about a 2-week thorough training on all things homelessness. We also engage our clients in things like good neighbor agreements and outlining kind of the rules and the requirements to be on site, what they should expect from us, what we should expect from them, and how their behavior out in the neighborhood will impact their stay at our site. So we go through this kind of agreement. We also engage our participants in behavioral contracts if ever needed. So rather than just put people out, we put them through a process of kind of warnings and going through getting to a behavior contract where there's agreements around what behavior needs to be addressed. And ultimately, folks are exited. Also, although it doesn't happen often. And then last, we will have 24/7 security on site. Around community engagements, just like we are having this meeting here tonight, we hope to continue these types of opportunities throughout our time at the Arena Hotel. We'll look for ways to engage other service providers to see how we can support each other. Often we'll have individuals staying here that might have a case manager at another agency, and all kind of working towards getting this individual housed, but also to keep our local business owners and community residents engaged. Want to make sure that we're providing the platform for feedback and input, and have the opportunity for us to address any challenges that come up and just be able to troubleshoot together. So we'll definitely continue to either participate in this group here or create other opportunities with all of you. And then as far as neighborhood blights, we understand that the folks that we serve often come with a lot of belongings. We have plans to provide storage for them on site. We will consider what they're bringing on site and making sure that they have the things that they need and things that they can do away with. We'll support them in that as well. I mentioned earlier, we'll be kind of monitoring the surrounding neighborhood. We're not security guards, but we'll be able to monitor the neighborhood a bit and at least be able to identify when challenges come up, or we're starting to see trash in the neighborhood, or there's graffiti going up, or whatever it might be. Again, not that these things happen often, but when they do, we do have the open communication with our City of San Jose partners and are able to seek their support, and they are always very quick to respond to these types of activity. So again, these are just, some of the things that we'll do moving forward once we get on sites, and hopefully you all take the opportunity to remain engaged and partner with us in ensuring that our services are an add-on to your community and not a burden. Here is just a quick success story. This is an individual that came in, was staying at our shelter, moved into one of our interim housing sites, or bridge housing communities, or EIH sites. They were case managed. They were enrolled in a rapid rehousing program, and soon after was permanently housed and employed. As you can see here, is currently working at Amazon, and he's just, one of our success stories is going from the street to shelter to support services and being permanently housed. So just wanted to highlight for you all that. And those are my slides.
Yeah, Renee, Bea, thank you very much for joining us today. Real fast, I addressed this in the chat, but just verbally, the slides will be emailed to the group. So just to let everybody know. Next up, we got Kyle Beach from Hyder. Kyle, take it away.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me and Hyder. John introduced us a little bit, but Hyder and Company, we have been managing affordable housing in California for over 55 years. We currently manage 130 properties for over 8,600 units. As John mentioned, we do have 3 properties currently in Santa Clara County that do have this same type of permanent supportive housing clients at the property. So not only has Hyder been managing properties like this for many years, but we do it right here in your same neighborhood. So we actually currently manage 7 former hotels that have been converted to permanent supportive housing residential properties for 711 units. This actually is very relatively recent development during COVID. Governor Newsom came out with Home Key to try and get those individuals off the streets. So it is a very new program, but it is proven to be very successful. Something that I wanted to touch on Renee's with Home First is we work collaboratively as property management, with the service providers. So we have weekly meetings about residents. We make sure that everyone is doing what they need to be in terms of following the lease, making sure that that no one is causing a nuisance to the other residents or the surrounding neighborhood. So we do a collaborative effort to make sure that the residents here at the property will be able to be housed, not just now, but in the future. So mine's pretty short and to the point with sweet, but that's all I have. And, I'll stick around if there's any questions as well. So, but thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Kyle.
That's great. I think we are, are we talking about relocation next, Nicholas?
Yes.
Okay. I thought we were on to Q&A, so I'll
one more speaker, Karen
Okay.
Edelman
Great.
from ARWS. Karen, take it away.
Thank you for having us tonight. I really appreciate it. I want to introduce myself. I'm Karen Edelman. I'm with ARWS, and Lorena Serrano from my office is also here this evening, and we just wanted to give you a little bit of information about our role to help the city of San Jose provide assistance to the 2 households that are currently living at the Arena Hotel. So we've been doing relocation assistance throughout the Bay Area for over 30 years, and our role is to work directly with the city and implement their relocation assistance program, which is a state program. And so we're happy to give a little bit more information about that as we go on. Next slide. So we've prepared a relocation plan, which is something that's required by state law. And in that plan, we address, this is the project. These are the people we think we're impacting. We don't name names. We just kind of describe the circumstance. We describe the type of assistance they need for replacement housing. We describe the city's relocation assistance program. And then we talk about resources. Are there places to move these 2 households into? So this draft plan is circulated for a 30-day review and comment period. And so that's going to start tomorrow. And we welcome any public comments or comments from this committee or from the occupants of the hotel. And we'll incorporate those comments into a final relocation plan. The 2 households that we have, one is the occupant manager who lives on site, and the other is a couple that have lived in one of the hotel rooms for more than 90 days. And so we're going to look for secure housing for them as a replacement. Next slide. So I just wanted to give you a very broad understanding of what the relocation assistance program is. It's a program that is designed to be fair and equitable and to ensure that any public project that is implemented provides protections for those who are occupying the properties. And so that really is our role, is to help people understand what their rights are and to help them find permanent replacement housing in the area. Some of those rights are that they receive relocation advisory services. So Lorena Serrano is working directly with each household and making sure they understand everything they're entitled to receive. They receive the requisite noticing that describes their rights. They have a minimum of 90 days to relocate to replacement housing so that we can help them find new sites. Our job is to interact with landlords and help them understand the occupants and the housing that they're looking for and the assistance that is available with the city. We also provide some payments, which is really helpful. One is the cost to move any personal property they have from point A to point B. And so there's a program to just figure out how much we owe somebody and how we can help them. We can either pay them to move themselves or we can pay movers to move them. So we'll continue to work with the households and see what they choose to do when it's time to relocate. We also provide 42 months of rental assistance to the households. So basically, if rent increases when they move, or if they can't afford the rent when they move, then the program steps in and provides a difference in the rent for 42 months. So that's a pretty wonderful system. It does get people into comparable, decent, safe, and sanitary replacement housing, which is really the goal of our program. So that kind of describes the program that we have. It's okay. Next slide. And this is just to help everybody understand why we're doing this. How did relocation assistance come to be for this project? And it all has to do with the funding for the project. And in front of you, you see the different funding sources that we have, the applicable laws under the federal and state laws, and the relocation ordinances that are available. So that's more for reference, but we are happy to answer any questions that you have now or later as you review the relocation planning document.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen. I have one question about the relocation document. Are we sending that out to this group? How are we making that available? Karen, have you made that available to us? Or are you sending it to us?
Let me talk with the internal team on how they want to do that. I'm not sure how they want to get that to everybody.
Okay.
So I'll defer to Isaac for that.
Okay, great. We have an email list for this group, so we're happy to send that out.
Great.
Available for public comment. And I did see a question came through for Hyder. Can Hyder share the kind of training their staff receives to work with this population? So Kyle, that's one for you that I saw through in the chat.
Yeah, I'm typing it right now, so it's long. So
I thought it might be long, so I thought I might give you the opportunity to just tell us instead of having to type it all out.
Yeah, I can throw it in the response too. But yeah, we do lots of training. So some of the courses I'll name specifically in the chat, but like crisis intervention through active engagement and de-escalation. So a lot of courses that Renee and his team do, we like to be an active participant in those. Just because a lot of times the households are coming to us with questions and we need to know the same types of things. We like to have the case managers available if it is going to be a contentious conversation. We also do supportive housing property management training for each of the site staff. We also do promoting housing stability through active engagement and some other things that we do. It's all done through a third party as well. So it's someone that is very well versed in doing these types of household trainings.
Thank you. And I see Dell, you have your hand up. You're muted.
Yes, thank you. So I just had a quick question. So this all sounds so wonderful. Once the program's up and running and daily ops are in place, there's 89 units. What is what's the churn look like, for a better word? So it's transitional housing. They come in, we get them on board with the things that are going to be required by them to, get skilled, get trained, get organized, and then move them into affordable housing and maybe to a job. What's the longest somebody might stay in the program? Is there a limit? And then this is only 89 units. So how do you manage? Is there's going to be a waiting list? How's that going to be managed? And then would you accommodate? It sounds like a gravy deal. So if you had somebody who took advantage of the program, got them into affordable housing, they took advantage of the 42 months of rental assistance, can they come back for whatever reason and be repeat clients?
Oh, just a clarification. I can answer that last question first, and then I'll let Rachel answer the technical questions. For relocation, only the 2 households that are currently living there that qualify for relocation assistance get the 42 months. That's not for everybody who lives there. It's just for the people who are there right now, who are subject to those current laws about relocation assistance applies. So I can answer that one I know. The rest of them, those are for Rachel.
What's the longest somebody can take advantage of this program, so somebody else can move in and
Yeah. So because it's interim housing, Rachel can explain to you kind of the path. You may have seen that in one of the slides from Home First, that this is really kind of it's a transitional place for people until they get into permanent housing, but I'll let Rachel explain that better.
And then I thought I heard her say 90 days. I thought that might be it. But then, long term, what are the measures of success? With the people that have moved out, do we keep tabs on them? Where are they 6 months later? Where are they 9 months later? How do we know how well this program is working in the long run?
All right, great questions. I'll go ahead and get started, and then I think I'll also have Renee jump in and help me out in little spots. So first of all, it's interim housing. And what that means is that it is really a shelter. It is a limited, okay. So basically people can live there as long as they need to. The reality is that there may be other housing solutions that are more comfortable, right? Maybe a little more space and a kitchen, or, so people can live there as long as they need to. There's no specific time frame that they are limited to. They're not like, you move in and you're automatically like thinking about moving out. It's not like that. But a lot of times what we want to do is we want to work actively with people to find another housing, a more permanent housing solution for them. So I would say that's where the interim comes from, right? So it's kind of like moving from living outdoors to moving indoors, and then moving to a permanent home. And what we're going to be doing is measuring the outcomes of how many people are moving to permanent housing, and what does that look like, and where are they going? So those are all metrics that we will be measuring, and I will just again have Renee just touch on anything I missed.
So it's realistic to expect that you're going to have a long list of people waiting to get in to take advantage of this program at this hotel.
Well, I would
say,
go ahead.
I'll jump in, Rachel.
Okay.
I'm sure that with similar projects, folks stay between 6 to 12 months. And even though these kind of tiny home EIH sites that you've seen is a fairly new concept and only been around for a few years, there have been very similar programs for many years. Transitional programs have been around for a very long time. And typically 6 to 12 months, folks are out. There is always a waiting list for these types of projects. We have waiting lists in our EIH sites right now. We work with the local COC. Bee, remind me, I'm blanking on COC.
The continuum of care.
Yeah, the continuum of care, the local continuum of care, where there's a community queue with folks are getting picked off and they enroll into different types of housing programs. There's now a shelter hotline where that will also feed folks into this Arena Hotel. So there are already community queues out there that have folks on the waiting list. But typically 6 to 12 months of folks are out. And as the service provider, our job is to get people into housing. And if people are not moving towards that, we either work harder to move them in that direction or start to look at other alternatives for that individual that's just not engaging, not progressing, perhaps offer them a bed at one of the congregate shelter sites.
So Del, just to be clear, there's not multiple waiting lists for each individual site. There's one list for the whole county, and we're trying to get as many sites as possible to make sure that there's, to get everyone under, real shelter instead of out on the streets.
That makes common good sense. So thank you very much for that. That was very helpful.
You're welcome. Nina, your hand is up.
Yes, thank you. I did have a couple of questions. This might be geared towards Hyder or perhaps Home First. My first question is in terms of noise after hours. What kind of noise mitigation or kind of mechanisms will be in place for the residents at the Arena Hotel to make sure that there's not issues, at 2 o'clock in the morning to disturb neighbors? Is that something that security would address, or is that a requirement as part of their agreement to be housed?
Yeah. So they'll sign a lease that basically you can't be a nuisance to other residents, neighbors, those types of things. And then yes, that we do have the security that would monitor that. Then obviously if there is any sorts of issues, we would get the police involved. But again, that usually the case management team really works with the clients that want to be housed to be able that they will follow the rules. So yes, there's going to be oversight of that and management of that.
Thank you, Kyle. And then a second question I had in terms of the security patrol, and Renee, you had mentioned this, will they be patrolling the outside, the 24-hour security? Are they patrolling the grounds, the exteriors as well?
Yeah, so be patrolling the entire property there. And just, depending on how busy the site is at certain hours, they'll have the flexibility to, kind of walk outside of out of that property as well. Walk up and down the sidewalk there if they can. But it is important to note that security guards, they're contracted for the property, and there's not a whole lot they can do once they leave that property, other than report back, and then hopefully our staff can kind of come out and address some challenges if they come about. But yeah, that guard will be patrolling the entire property.
And you had just mentioned that there will be staff on site 24 hours outside of the patrol. Did I have that correctly?
I believe for this project, we have staff that are there from, I believe about 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., something like that. They are not there 24 hours.
But isn't there's someone on the property? Is it property management, Kyle,
Yeah.
that's on site 24/7?
Yeah, there would be an on-site manager that would be there, virtually 24/7, obviously if they're out on vacation, things like that. But, and then we do have, after hours emergency numbers, if there is anything, and certainly security being there is a huge help. So.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And I just want to add one more thing. One of the things that we did when we had our overnight warming location, which kind of turned into a shelter during the pandemic, with Home First is the security had a really good relationship with PD. And so the captain actually lost, he texted me, the PD lost internet connectivity during this meeting. But anyway, I know that the captain will be very involved and will be probably meeting with the security team as well, so that we are ensured that that line of communication is open and clear. So that's the other thing that helps kind of provide security, like a seamless level of security across not just the site, but also the neighborhood. Jack, you've got your hand up.
Thank you. Appreciate this meeting. I have a couple, maybe 3 questions. One has to do with the criteria for getting into the program. I know that there are agencies that are screening these people, but I don't know what the criteria is for admissions and exclusion. Is there anybody who can answer that question?
I can try to answer that. I don't think it's been completely defined, and maybe if Kelly H is there, and you can jump in as well. I mean, we are looking for folks that we feel will be successful in this type of project, which is usually kind of your mid-level person. There's an assessment that every homeless person takes, and they are scored from like 0 to like 18 or something. And our kind of sweet spot for this project is between about 6 to 8, 6 to 9, something along those lines. And I believe that's what we're targeting. Even for the folks that are coming out of an encampment, we're still between our team doing outreach and the county's team also doing outreach in those areas. We're kind of dividing up and conquering there and trying to assign folks within that sweet spot for these types of projects. And the folks that are kind of higher acuity are being taken into more appropriate projects. Did I get that right, Kelly?
I would just add that, hi, Renee, sorry. I would just add that this is a low barrier type of setting. By state law, we are required to follow a certain housing first model, which means there aren't a lot of prerequisites to entry or to staying there, at least in the first phase of operation as an emergency interim shelter. So we will be accepting people within close proximity of the site as a priority. We also will be targeting some other areas. We will leverage our outreach teams as well to do some referrals. And then of course, our centralized hotline that was mentioned earlier.
From what I understand then, it's very possible that you could have people who have serious mental illness coming into the site. Is that correct?
I can see B unmuted. She, it's very possible, but you know, the Home First staff is very well equipped to handle all types of situations. They are operating several emergency interim housing sites now, and we have quite a bit of success there. So they're very well equipped to handle any situation or any.
I know Home First and you do good work. That's not my question. My concern is though, that you have no psychiatry support. I know you refer out, but there's no psychiatry that's available to Arena Hotel. If you have people coming in who are, floridly psychotic. So how do you handle that then?
No, I'll share that. We at Home First also operate congregate shelters and like super low barrier shelters. And the folks that are really that high acuity, who really aren't fit to even be in one of those types of shelters, let alone a project like this, if they come in, they don't stay there very long. Either we are working with another organization or sending them over to 24-hour care or something along those lines. Folks, I mean, even if they're coming from that shelter hotline, they have to be able to care for themselves, right? And our team is looking out for that. And when they're not able to care for themselves, we are trying to make those connections to move them to something more appropriate.
Okay, so it's feasible that at the point of screening, you decide that they're not appropriate and they're referred elsewhere to something more appropriate. Am I understanding you correctly?
It's feasible.
Okay, all right, good. My last question is, you have a lot of people who are involved in this, and they're very impressive organizations. Who is coordinating all of the activities of this group?
I'll take that one. So I'm John Bigley with Urban Housing Communities. So we're kind of the quarterback, whereas we'll set up regular meetings with the group, that being with the housing department, that being with Renee's group and property management, to make sure that, there's good, we're all working together to the same goal. If there's any issues between the organizations or questions about how to handle certain situations, those are types of discussions that we'll have, and discuss programs. Or if sometimes, because of the different roles, right, property management might say, hey, these are some of the issues we're running into as a property management company. Renee, how could your group help with that, or vice versa? And so we'll be having those meetings regularly, at least initially we'll probably have them once a week, and then as things stabilize, then it'll probably go to every other week or once a month, but we'll have constant communication and discussions on that, but we'll be organizing that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Thanks for the questions.
Thank you. Are there other questions?
You want to ask a question?
No, I just want a lower hand.
I just wanted to jump in on one of the issues that came up about the mental health acuity or mental illness acuity issue. The reason I just want to give some context for the partners. The neighborhood has been really impacted by some homeless individuals who have some pretty serious mental illnesses. And I think we all appreciate the proximity priority for folks. And that was why there have been multiple questions about psychiatric care on the site and also nursing care on the site, because as you may have kind of picked up from the neighbors, that is something that is likely to be a need if we're prioritizing people in the proximity. And I would say, I would just like to really highlight that, because that has been something this neighborhood all along the Alameda and the Shasta Handship Park neighborhood and the Alameda Gardens neighborhood have really had to have been impacted by for many years, not just during my 6 years on the council, but even before that, and where they know the folks by name, and there have been some issues, including some kind of violent issues. So that's something that I think I'm glad everyone brought that. People brought that up. Jackie brought it up, and I think a couple of others have brought that up. That I want Home First to be aware of that, and to, if you can, plan for that need. It's not just, I see that Dana put in there about the Arena Hotel tenants. It's not just Arena Hotel tenants. It is also some people who have been, they're living on the streets. They may have relatives who live in the neighborhood, but they are not able to keep themselves housed, who may be on, have taken a VI SPDAT and who have never been housed, and frankly have not gotten the psychiatric care that they need. And so that's something that I think we just all need to be aware of. If Arena Hotel can be a place where people can actually get the care that they need or be referred to the real care that they need, that would be a real relief for the residents and frankly for the folks who are suffering on the street as well.
May I just respond to you,
Are you muted,
Deb?
honey?
No.
Please.
I really appreciate you saying this because I think it's not just the community concerns, but it's also to care of these people.
Yes.
And it's tragic to see these people walking on the street, floridly psychotic, half dressed. You know this.
I know.
And what we were told when we visited the place down in South San Jose is that there was not money in the budget for this kind of care. So my question to you is, what is the city or the county going to do, or the state, to provide this kind of assistance?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I can tell you that psychiatric care is beyond the city's capability. That is something that I know that we have provided for services for 7 years. We've provided for the service level that we normally have. The psychiatric care is much more intensive. And that's something that, as we've been talking tonight, and I've kind of been thinking about with the proximity priority, that's something that I'm going to take to our supervisors and ask if maybe there's some possibility for this particular site, given that I expect the governor to sign the care court legislation that is on his desk already. So I'm hopeful that we can maybe have this site be a little bit more enhanced services than we normally have, if we have that need, which I think we all know we do. There is a question. There was I think I saw a comment go by. I appreciate your comments, Dana, about this opportunity for us all to be involved. But there was a question after that. Will Home First assume responsibility for damages done by residents within their program to neighboring properties? Renee, you're muted.
I'll share that we are being contracted to come in and provide support services only.
If I can say one thing, I am a owner of the pub that is 100 meters away from the arena, and I'm in the hotel, and I sell booze, beer mostly, but also alcohol as well. And I already had problem twice when they tried to break in, and once when they actually broke in and stole the cash register and stuff. And I'm not pleased, obviously, with everything what's going on. Do we gonna have some kind of extra protection or something from the government? I'm not sure how to react to everything what's going on here. I'm 100 meters away, literally.
Yeah. So I want to be clear about there will be a much different approach to what's happening at the Arena Hotel right now. So the Arena Hotel right now is a privately owned hotel, and there are no services on site, 0 services on site, 0 case management on site for anyone who is living there. They may be living there with a motel voucher from the county, but they don't have case management services. It's a completely different type of setup once the city gains access to it. First of all, it will be empty for, 6 months from November to March while construction is going on. So no one will live there. And then after that, the Home First will be there to provide services, and Hyder will be there to provide property management. It's a lot different scenario. People are getting stabilized and they're working their case plan. So they're getting a case plan and they're working on a case plan. I'm not saying, you know, nobody's going to ever do anything wrong. That clearly is not how the world works. But what you're experiencing, if you experience any crime at your property, I'm not going to say it's, you know, impossible that it's somebody from Arena Hotel, but I'm just saying, like, there is crime out in the community and we can't necessarily put that all on whoever's staying at the Arena Hotel at that time. Right?
Yeah,
So,
I understand that.
yeah.
Still doesn't make me feel any better, though.
Understood. Del?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess I assume that there was a higher level of vetting that was going to go on, but to his point, let's just say hypothetically that a crime was committed to his pub and the perpetrator was apprehended and it was discovered that they were a resident of the arena. What then? What are the consequences to crime that is actually committed by somebody from the arena?
Rachel?
I can jump in and maybe Kyle can help me out a little bit too. But essentially, when there's an agreement between a resident and a property manager, or, you know, and in this case, like the ultimate owner is Urban Housing Communities, and one of their residents has some sort of crime committed, and if that information is made available to the property manager, then they're going to be reviewing the agreement that the resident agreed to and determine if there was some sort of violation of that agreement. And so then essentially the agreement outlines like what the consequences are. And so, you know, it may depend. Is this the very first time? How serious was the situation? You know, there's just different levels of crimes that are considered in different ways. And so the property management team, and then along with the services team, are just going to evaluate, like, what is the situation, and you know, is the consequence to whatever this action may be that they actually lose their housing opportunity here at the Arena Hotel, or if they are, you know, going to be put on, like, may be able to continue to live there, but understand now your expectations have changed, and, you know, you're on warning that a consequence to this type of behavior is actually losing your housing, which is actually a serious consequence when someone has experienced homelessness. It's very difficult to realize that they may be back in that situation if they can't maintain what they need to do to live in this environment.
Great answer. And a real world example that we have on some of the properties that we manage in the county is sometimes we'll work with the service providers and case managers to try and find them another place to live that might be more appropriate for them. So it is a case by case basis, but Rachel is exactly right. We will review that and make sure that the appropriate action is taken. So
I'm sorry, last question. It's if something like that happens again for me, and somebody was trying to break into my business and everything, who is going to pay for the damages? Because obviously you all know that if I'm applying for the insurance and everything, it's my insurance going to go up and everything. And I'm not sure exactly why I should pay and stuff, you know, and why the Arena Hotel wouldn't pay for that, for the damages, if they wouldn't, of course, but maybe they would.
I can just jump in to just say, you know, when it comes to, you know, actual payment of damages, I mean, I think, again, this is going to depend on the situation. Is there a certain individual that's responsible? Is there, like what are the details? It's just going to be, it's going to come down to that. But the organization that is housing an individual is not responsible for like the behavior of those individuals. Again, there's an agreement about what type of behavior is acceptable and what is not. And if that agreement is broken, that also like breaks the liability. So I would just have to say that, with any business, we're going to be taking risks, and those risks have to be evaluated. And in this case, we're also, taking on, there's liabilities associated with owning and managing a shelter. And so that is something that will be taken on, as is, other risks with running other businesses on the Alameda. So it all kind of has to work together. But I think what's really good is like having groups like this to have conversation and understand what we're all doing to try and contribute to creating a really healthy environment and place to run great businesses on the Alameda, which we all can just really appreciate and enjoy in San Jose.
I love what you just said about that we're all working together to solve this problem. And one of the goals that I have from being on this committee is I want to go to my neighbors and say, look, to my neighbors who don't actually buy into a lot of this, and I want to say, but here's what we're getting out of this, and here's the possible good that comes out of it. But to his point, and to create that balance, this is an opportunity where things can go really sideways. So if you have somebody who commits a crime, breaking and entering, for example, and it's a crime that the average person would be arrested. If I went and broke in and got caught, I would be arrested.
That's the same thing that will happen here.
But
I mean, the law still applies.
Right. And
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you make this call whether or not that they can stay in the facility, and that same person, which is very possible, goes and repeats a crime somewhere else of the same level of importance. I think at that point, the program needs to assume responsibility or take a more definitive action. They can't stay under those circumstances if they're going to be repeat offenders of crime. I can't, none of my neighbors would support that either. And that's the kind of thing, the first time it happens, that's what everybody focuses on.
Yeah. So thank you for that comment. So I think for our next meeting, maybe it would be helpful for us to see, and I don't know if this is Kyle or Renee, to see the good neighbor agreement that folks go through, that folks agree to when they come to a property. And I don't know if that's worked out yet. I mean, I know there's a little bit of time before we have people, but for a future meeting, if not next month, what the good neighbor agreement is that folks sign when they come to a property, and then kind of walk through how this has gone in the past, maybe have a couple of examples for folks so that they can kind of think through what would be happening. And I do want to point out that I appreciate everybody coming to this with both compassion as well as realistic expectations. I really appreciate that this has been a very calm and frank discussion. I do want to just note that we are over time, and I see there's still a couple of hands up, so I want to make sure that we get to that. We're 7:45, so anybody who needs to drop off, but I'm hoping that we can have our partners stay on to answer any lingering questions. So Rhonda, you've got your hand up.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, I do have to leave the meeting, but I did want to say that it was really informative for me to visit the Rue Ferrari site and to talk to the project manager, to see the programs that are there, see the wraparound services that are offered, see the kinds of support that the people living there get. And I think that if we have other opportunities to visit that, I would encourage all of you to do that, because I think it will assuage your fears on things and on how motivated the people are to do better and to make a life. And so I think I'm happy that we're going to be able to work together and do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda. And that's a good note for us. My office will, I know we had a couple of dates that were possible. And so I want to make sure that we make that available. And I know that Home First has a lot of tours of the Rue Ferrari site. So we are going to be trying to schedule, maybe we'll try to schedule a couple more before the end of the year so that people are all have possibilities for their availability that fits their availability. Del, did you have your hand up again or is it still up? I'm sorry. You're on mute. Oh, okay. All right.
Deb, if I could just say one thing.
Yeah.
It was good to visit that site that she was just referring to. That was very helpful. But it
Great.
would be good to go to a site of a similar hotel setting because it's a totally different arrangement
Yes.
structurally.
Yeah. Good point. So I remember Nicholas had mentioned that. I know when he came back on Tuesday. Nicholas, do you want to? We're trying to find a site.
Yeah, we're currently in the process of trying to figure out which is the best one to visit. So yeah, we are working on that. I do remember you were the one who brought it up during the Rue Ferrari site. Yeah, we're working on it. As soon as we get some options, some dates, I'll reach out to the group, and yeah, we'll go from there. But great idea.
We're trying to. So we wanted to first send people to a site that Home First is the service provider, and we're just trying to figure out where Home First is the service provider for hotels that would be comparable. So we have a lot of different service providers in the city, and there's we have a lot of different solutions, housing solutions as well. And so we're just trying to find the Venn diagram there. Thank you, everyone. I want to thank all of our community members for coming and participating in the conversation. And for all of you who went to Rue Ferrari. I wasn't able to make it, and I hope that you were able to stay hydrated while you were there. And I'm glad that it was a good opportunity for you to see what was going on, and that it was a good experience for you all. And I also want to thank all of our partners who are going to be working on this site, or who are already working on this site, I should say. Thanks for coming to this meeting. So Nicholas, do we have a date for next month's meeting already set?
We do. I will send out the link after this meeting. I don't have it off the top of my head. October 13th.
Okay.
I believe. And also, if I may, the chat has been saved. So if you asked a question and it didn't get addressed, we will address that in a subsequent Q&A sheet similar to the one we sent out today. Also, if you think of a question after we end this meeting, feel free to email it to me and I'll make sure it gets on that next edition of the Q&A sheet that we'll be sending out. So
great. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Good night, everyone.